It is truly an honor to be here. Good afternoon. My name is Jenna Miladin, and I served in AmeriCorps with the Great Basin Institute in Capitol Reef National Park, Utah. I'm a botanist and evolutionary biologist by training, and I was lucky enough to spend my days at Capitol Reef working with the native plants. Whether it was leading seed collection efforts for our restoration projects, climbing through slot canyons or up steep ridges in the backcountry in search of rare plants, or working in data analysis in the office, I was lucky enough to have this unique opportunity to contribute to the shared mission of researching and conserving important species. I grew up in the California desert, and I was often left to wander to my heart's desire, which fostered an early love for natural landscapes. I began undergrad knowing that I wanted to focus on plants and evolution, and my interest in conservation developed as I started this research under my advisor, Dr. Janet Stephen. We saw the gap in research utilizing integrative methods to achieve conservation goals, and she encouraged me to explore ideas in this growing field. I was really fortunate to have learned from many strong women in my career. From my advisor in my undergrad and master's, Dr. Janet Stephen, and my boss at Capitol Reef, Dr. Morgan Vetcha, to my current advisor, Dr. Mary Beth Latvis. They taught me and continue to teach me how to be confident in the pursuit of my studies and my fieldwork endeavors. I found the Great Basin Institute at the end of my undergrad years thanks to my advisor, which led me to applying for and accepting my first job with GBI and the National Forest Service in Nevada. I had such a wonderful, fulfilling experience in those 6 months in the Great Basin that I would frequently surf around GBI's job board, daydreaming about, where could I go next? I actually had promised that my advisor that I wouldn't run off into the desert again for 6 months, and technically, I was right. It wasn't 6 months, it was for over a year. But I saw the posting for a botanist in Capitol Reef National Park, and my advisor encouraged me to apply. So after finishing the last few classes I needed for my master's, I moved to Utah, where I worked for the park by day and wrote my master's thesis in my spare time. The type of fieldwork I did in Capitol Reef was different and more expansive than what I had experienced before. This covered a breadth of methods and project types, which really pushed me to think about the various causes and consequences the problems our project addressed. The research we did was designed to target botanical and wildlife priorities to address land management concerns of the park. So this means I not only expanded my knowledge in botanical conservation methods, but I also gained really valuable experience in wildlife research as well. I had a lot of incredible fieldwork experience during my time at Capitol Reef that were exhilarating, full of discovery, and sometimes a bit hair-raising. One of the most notable discoveries was made while I was in the field looking for a population of asters, which is in the sunflower family, for seed collection. What appeared to be a small black substance actually turned out to be the pupa casing of a rare fruit fly, which hadn't been recorded or seen since the 1980s. The following months were filled with fieldwork to identify the extent of the infestation, where multiple aster species were found with evidence of this fruit fly destroying up to 60% of the seeds in any given population. 2 species new to science were discovered during this process: another fruit fly species and a wasp parasitoid species that is actually parasitizing the fruit fly pupa. So this is weird. This is a nested parasitism infestation. And it has implications for not only the general health and seed production of the park's aster species, but also the success of our restoration project, given the prevalence of aster species that are used in restoration. I was given the opportunity to speak about this research at regional meetings and national conferences, which helped us form collaboration and expose our knowledge to other public lands that also have this problem. This is the power of observation. Whether it was me or someone else, this complex nested parasitism interaction would have never been discovered unless there were boots on the ground doing field work. And that is what is so special about the Corps network. They allow for endless opportunities for their members to do hands-on research and monitoring that greatly contributes to the scientific knowledge of public lands. I get asked a lot why I chose to study plants, and there are honestly a lot of different ways I could answer this question. But to simply put it, I think we can learn a lot from them, scientific lessons and life lessons alike. Plants are more resilient than most people give them credit for. I have spent enough time observing them in the field, in the desert, to know that just because a plant looks like it's growing out of a cliff face and hanging on by a thread, or a root in this case, does not mean that it will not persist for the next million years or so. I think plants have this incredible ability to adapt to the harshest of conditions. And I think discovering this on my scientific botanical journey has taught me something about persevering in my own personal journey. I was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when I was 16, which has resulted in various physical and mobility challenges. A future doing things I loved, and being outside was going to look a lot different than I had planned for. But plants endure in rough terrain, and so can people. I found myself, I wanted to test my own limits rather than staying confined to those set upon me. And in doing so, I found myself being able to make a career in conservation, finding plants in remote places, and I am incredibly lucky to be able to say that. Honestly, I spent a lot of time considering how much of this I wanted to talk about, but muscular dystrophy is a part of me and my journey as both a person and a scientist with a deep love for fieldwork, although it does not define me. As an evolutionary biologist, I particularly like to focus on the origins of plant diversity and the mechanisms and processes that resulted in their evolution. Understanding both the how and why of plant evolution in the past, I think, greatly contributes to how we might predict the adaptation and evolution of plants in the future. Given the broad challenges every living system will be facing and is currently facing due to climate change, understanding and predicting what drives a species to adapt in certain ways or not and face the risk of extinction will tell us a lot about what we can expect future biodiversity to look like. In order to do this, merging fields and methods typically used in academia with conservation practices will be essential. My time with the Corps and the Great Basin Institute in Capitol Reef National Park has made me think more broadly about the application of science. And finding parallels between my research in evolutionary biology and my work monitoring and conserving rare species at the park has shaped my vision for my future research. I'm now in the first year of my PhD in biological sciences at the University of Arkansas, where my research will work to understand how rarity in plant systems has evolved, how we might expect rare species to respond under climate change, and then translate this into a framework that will help direct conservation efforts. Climate change will affect human and botanical wildlife systems alike, and it's thanks to the Corps movement and the Great Basin Institute that we have a strong foundation of scientific work that contributes to the climate resiliency of communities and public lands, as well as promotes our own individual tenacity. Thank you.